Today I'm going to be talking about, I suppose, a strategy for beating PokeRogue, since I know a lot of people, struggle to beat the, game, and I can prove that I've beaten, specifically the classic mode, since, of course, this Magnemite has a, ribbon. Some others do. Let's see. Where is it? Like Sprigatito and Tinkatink. But basically, because the main issue you're going to deal with is the Eternatus at the end. The bigger side issues, of course, are the final two rival battles, since you have to deal with the Rayquaza, and those aren't really easy. But there are ways to work around that. Specifically, I'm talking about Houndour, or I guess Houndoom, and Dachsbun. This one. What's special about these Pokemon are that they have the tools necessary to deal with Eternatus's moves. Like, they have immunities, but they also are pretty easy to find early game. Like this Fido, if you play enough times, you won't have too many issues finding a Dachsbun. As long as it doesn't have its hidden ability, you're fine. And also, of course, but you should be looking to find one with Flash Fire, not early bird, since those, both, I think, Aromavale and early bird for these Pokemon are not going to be helpful at all, and will negate any of the benefits reaped from having them. One of the only issues really having Houndoom is that, I mean, it's a little bit frail, but that's nothing too crazy. But one of the bigger issues is that it doesn't really get any dark moves at all that take advantage of its better stat, special. I am lucky enough to have gotten one with Fiery Wrath, so I don't have to deal with many of those issues. But, it's a little harder on everyone else who doesn't get access to that kind of thing. And, of course, Dachsbun, its move pool's a bit limited. Of course, once again, I've got Body Press, so it shouldn't be that big of an issue, but still. It's a little harder to run both of these two, since, they're just not super duper strong Pokemon, but as long as you have them high enough level, like caught up with everyone else, or maybe a little higher, then you should be perfectly fine. You would want to have, like, Play Rough, and then other moves like Crunch, and I believe there's another move that Dachsbun gets, like, perhaps, like, Double Edge, and finding TMs for, like, Protect or moves that boost your offenses. I mean, Dachsbun naturally gets Work Up, which, it's not the greatest, but it's definitely helpful, and Houndour here eventually gets Nasty Plot, so that's really good to look forward to. Setup is almost everything in this game, since it's hard to just do chip away damage unless you have a Pokemon that's catered to it, or to doing massive damage. But yeah. But what's special here is that Houndour can absorb the fire hits. Oh my gosh, that sounded crazy. Houndour here can absorb Eternatus's fire attacks, and it's just a generally good typing. Great stabs and coverage. You also get Shadow Ball, which isn't terrible. It's good to have different coverage moves. And this one can also absorb the fire hits, which are pretty important here. But more importantly, it can take Dynamax Cannon and be completely immune without help of Within ability. So this takes out 2 of its offenses. So it's very good. I do recommend having these 2, maybe both, if you can. Houndour is, I guess, they're kind of on an equal playing field, since Houndour's ability, Flash Fire, can draw the fire hits towards it rather than having to be directly targeted like Dachsbun. So that's one up that it has, but Fido, and again, has 2 immunities, so if you can get both, great. But, both have good qualities. I would say that basically what you're needing is at least 1 Flash Fire, or I guess Fido. 1 or 2 Flash Fires, probably just 1. 2 Fairies to lose risk of getting hit with the Dynamax Cannon, or a Pokemon that can protect. And like 2 Steels or something, I don't know, a Steel or 2. It's very, very limited, but it works. Because I've done it before, and it worked perfectly. I didn't even have to do anything. I will have to say, though, that this run, because, hear me out, you're trying to win, right? You might want to save Scum. I know you probably shouldn't, but it's within the game. It's one of the splash texts literally acknowledges the fact that you can save Scum the game. So I recommend that you do that in this case, because especially in the Eternatus fight, it's very unpredictable, because it'll sometimes make horrible plays, and it sometimes won't. But, you never know. Of course, I will say here, like I said, still, save Scumming, be very great. But also, you should probably take note of what moves it makes during the battle. Like, so that you can, if you decide to reset, or like reload the page, then you can, make a mental note and try to make other routes, because this game seemingly has no differentiating AI, like a regular Pokemon game. If you run out the same string of moves, Water Gun, Growl, the opponent will do the exact same thing. No matter what, even if you reset the game. I've run 15 of the same movements several times over, consistently, no matter what the difference is, so... Or no matter, like, the situation, it's always the same. Unless you make a different move, then it'll start to differentiate, but obviously, I have some suggestions for Steel types you could pick up. Tinkatink is very good, in the game. Of course, it's Tinkatink. You definitely want to have higher, physical attacking stats. Like, try and aim for the 31. It's not always possible, but if you can find them, take them. This is a very good Pokemon, since it's completely able to ignore the Eternatus's poison and dragon attacks. It's very good there. It also gets Flatter and Fake Out, which are pretty good, not gonna lie. I think you can also take advantage of Swords Dance. I think it gets that, don't know. If you can find it, try it. Yeah. Let me see if I have IVs. Not the greatest. But, it works. because, you know, obviously it's not going to be fully resistant to everything. Of course, still got the fire, but nothing a flash fire Pokemon can't deal with. Water types and dragon types are also very good if you can't get like access to Houndour or can't seem to find one in the wild, which I totally get. I've only ever found them twice, and they were very early game, but maybe that's just because I never really restart runs that much. But, you know, Tinkatink has Gigaton Hammer, of course, very good, and decent offenses. If you can get its passive, that's great. You're a winner. I will say, if you ever find a fusion and you happen to have a Pokemon like, I think the only one applicable to this is Heatran. If you can get yourself a Heatran on the team and then mix it with a Tinkatink, I think you're set. Because, so if you do Tinkatink, then Heatran, or Tinkaton, then Heatran, it'll merge their stats, which is already pretty good, since it'll probably have a higher attack since the Heatran will probably already have a higher attack than the Tinkaton on its own. But it will give it Flash Fire, meaning it's entirely immune to the opponent's attacks, which is crazy, and I definitely recommend it. I personally can't do that, but I've seen a person do it, and it was very, very effective in the end. So yeah, I definitely recommend that. And, oh yeah, also, where's it at? Honedge, very good. If you can find it, do it. It's a very good Pokemon because just automatic access to any form of Protect is very good, especially in the late game, since the last battle is a double battle, and you can potentially completely waste its turn by King Shielding. And what makes Honedge and specifically Aegislash so great in the end game is that Honedge here, or I guess Aegislash, when using King's Shield, immediately goes, since of course Protect moves are priority, immediately switches into a defensive form, making it more resilient to hits. So right off the bat, you're already in that form, and as long as you're not attacking, like you can spam Swords Dances, then you can sit there and tank a hit or two, then decide to jab at it, then shield up again, and it's very, very effective. One of its only downsides really is that it doesn't really get much good Ghost Stab. You do get Shadow Sneak and I think Shadow Claw, but I mean, wouldn't you prefer having like Iron Head and Sacred Sword? Those are just very good moves. I mean, if you want the Shadow Claw to have more stab against the Eternatus, then go ahead. But, of course, you know, do whatever. I mean, Sacred Sword is specifically the chosen move in my case, since the Eternatus can stack up defenses and be hard to take down, while Sacred Sword, if you can manage to boost yourself, you can start hitting it and completely negating those defense boosts, so it's very good. And where's my last steel type that I was going to recommend? Gotta find it. Yeah, Magnezone, pretty good, very good, honestly. Can tank a hit or two. I mean, cannot take any of the flamethrowers, know from experience, but if it decided to switch into one of the like poison moves, it's totally immune. If it decided to switch into one of the dragon moves, it could totally tank it. And I know that from experience. Plus, it's electric. That's pretty good coverage. Coverages like steel and electric are not terrible. Let's see, what are the other ones? Oh yeah, very, very good Pokemon to have. Impidimp. This is just mean. Impidimp, specifically Grimmsnarl, if you get Prankster on it, not Frisk, Prankster, you can be using moves like, Swagger, and, like, I can't remember the other one, but, like, there's some pretty good moves that this one can take advantage of, and just ruin the opposition's day. I think Parting Shot here, if you do get access to it, pretty funky. I have no idea how it's affected by Encore, but if you take up Encore, of course this is all assuming you might have hatched one, then you could potentially lock it into a dragon move and sit there with 2 fairies and just chip away at it, and it has no way of doing anything, which is very funny. Yeah. And also Swagger, since it only has really one physical stab, which is Poison Jab, it will be hitting itself a lot of the time and doing a lot of damage to itself, so haha funny. Oh yeah, I remembered one last thing about Houndour. Yeah, this line does get access to Super Fang. It's a very good move for you in this case if you're trying to win, since the health bar gets avoided or completely ignored when it comes to that move specifically, or any halving moves like Ruination from Wo-Chen plus Leech Seed. This Pokemon is actually very good against it, even though its typing's terrible. If you can get off like even one Ruination and a Leech Seed, it's going to be dying the entire time. It's going to be very significantly easier. And also, of course, Guardian of Alola or whatever it's called. That's the Z move. I don't really remember the name of their signature move, but whatever that one is. Nature's Madness, my bad. That move also has a similar effect. I mean, I don't know that, I haven't used it, but assuming it's similar to Ruination since they're the same thing with a different brand on it. Yeah, this is totally fine to use, both of them, and also, of course, Super Fang. And leeching moves, great. Good to use on this. This isn't one of the Pokemon I recommend bringing to the endgame, even though I have before. And Juan, of course. Flamigo is just funny. And I know that sounds a little goofy, but listen, Flamigo gets low kick, and Flamigo is a relatively light Pokemon, so you can spam low kick a bunch of times and do massive damage to a ton of things. So I definitely recommend trying to get your hands on a Flamigo if you ever find one, because that could definitely do some damage to your opponents. So that's a very good Pokemon to have. Also, anything that you can find that gets access to Triple Axle is going to be good. Specifically for the Rayquaza fights. These are just good Pokemon to have, honestly. I'm just listing good Pokemon. But Sprigatito gets Triple Axle. I know several other Pokemon get Triple Axle through eggs, and I mean, yeah, the egg grind is pretty bad, but if you can get it, it's very good. Because what's funny is that if you can bait the opponent into switching in the Rayquaza, like, I've gotten lucky where the opponent's starter was the water starter, and I led with Sprigatito, or Meowscarada, which in that case, the opponent wants to switch into Rayquaza since it's already immediately a better type coverage, or not type coverage, but type, like, matchup. And if you can predict that, because they're almost always going to want to switch unless it's like a type that can oppose Sprigatito's, then they will switch in the Rayquaza and immediately get brought to, like, if you're fighting the normal one, one like health bar, and if it's the other, maybe down to half. Maybe a little more than that in my experience. So it's very funky and very, very good to use. But yeah, I think that's it. I will say, using fusions, very good idea. Just be careful with what you fuse. Magikarp is just very funny. I recommend using Magikarp because Gyarados is just not nice. Just generally, I totally recommend trying to use this one. Like, let me see. It's not too difficult to find if you go to the water areas. And, one of its signatures is multi-scale, so funny. And also, obviously, Gyarados is just a good Pokemon, and you should 100% use it. So, yeah, I believe that's it. That's all I really have to say about, what you should and shouldn't use for your PokeRogue plays. I personally had a save file that, let me check, the Pokemon. Okay, I checked, it consisted of, like, Empoleon, Grimmsnarl, Kingambit, Dachsbun, Houndour, and Trevenant, just for funsies. That one was because the rival had Swampert, but, Pokemon like those, very good to use against the, final bosses, specifically the last two rival fights and Eternatus. Very good Pokemon. Kingambit, I forgot to mention Kingambit. I'll just mention it briefly. It's a very good Pokemon. You should use it. It's got great stats, and it's got great stats, and it's got great, like, everything, really. Struggles a little bit defensively, I believe, but if you can get your hands on, shards, great. You can get rid of some of those weaknesses. But, of course, I'm talking specifically about against the rival, since it can resist, Rayquaza, though I wouldn't, shard it up against the, Eternatus, because that definitely does not work. It is very weak to the Flamethrower, but it does deal well against the Dragon moves and Poison, so great. It can also Swords Dance, and Sucker Punch or Koto Cleave, if you choose to pick that, and also Iron Head, Orb, I believe Sacred Sword or one of the sword moves, either or. Very good. So, yeah. Of course, also, wait, one last one. Oh my gosh, I'm a little bit of a mess, and being on phone doesn't help. But Piplup here, pretty decent. It's got good typing, very unique typing as well. You would want to use it, since it's got Steel Stab and, a Starter Stab, so, a grouping I used that did win once for me was, Houndour. I'm not really setting these two up right now, but a Houndour, Dachsbun, and Piplup, and those worked very well. So if you can get any of the others to work, honestly, almost any fairy will work for you, but if you can get it, that's great for you. And remember, a lot of the things I've said, just in my own personal experience, but of course it could work for you as well. So I hope any of that helped, and good luck.